What they ought to do is evacuate up there on the hill and get a great big missile and blow that wicked dome of the rock plumb off of the spot where it's standing right now, so we can get that third temple rebuilt and usher in the coming of Jesus.
Okay, if you don't know what this preacher just said, this is Greg Locke. He basically just said he wants to destroy Palestine completely, get a giant missile, and erase it from existence and everybody in it. Men, women, and children, and even babies. Get rid of all of it with a missile. That is psychotic. Now, I don't know what side you find yourself on, if you're on the Israel side or the Palestine side or what. I'll tell you what side I'm on. I'm on the side of human rights. Israel's human rights were violated horrifically by a terrorist organization when they rushed in and captured prisoners and then started killing them. Doesn't get much more horrific than that. Except it does, unfortunately. Israel responded by, well, we don't know the full extent of what they're going to do yet. I guess time will tell, but it appears as though they're going to commit a genocide on the people. And where does Greg Locke fall? He falls on the side of genocide. He wants to take out all of the Palestinians. Now, that's not exactly what he said in the clip we just listened to, but we'll get there. He openly, brazenly says it. So let's listen to a couple of clips from Greg Locke that I want to talk about. I came across recently, early October 2023. It's in the sermon that he did immediately after all of this went down. It gets psychotic. It's unacceptable to take people's lives brazenly and without excuse like this. It's unacceptable to take their lives in cold blood like Hamas did. I feel so deeply sad for the people who lost loved ones in Israel. Palestine is in a bad, scary spot right now, and I am horrified watching it unfold. I am very, very disturbed and concerned. I just want everybody to live peacefully. I want Jews to live peacefully. I want Palestinians to live peacefully. Why can't we have that? Anyway, listen to this clip from Greg Locke. This is the opener here, early October 2023.
If you thought I was going to talk about these poor, beat down, oppressed Palestinians, that's a bunch of nonsense that's been pushed by the media.
That Palestinians are beat down and or oppressed? That's nonsense pushed by the media? Okay, most of the media I hear talks about how Israel is the oppressed one and that Palestinians are like this big evil whatever. I'm not sure what he's talking about here. Quick interjection. I won't take long. I just wanted to tell you guys, YouTube's algorithm operates off of a few factors. Watch time, whether or not you subscribe, and whether or not you like something. So if you really want to help my channel, I would appreciate it if you guys watch the video to the end. If you don't watch it to the end, just watch a little bit longer than you would have otherwise. I would appreciate that very much. All right, let's get back to the video.
Okay? What we would call them, the Bible would call what you would consider Palestinians, which really is a made-up word. There's no such person.
There's no such person as Palestinian? It's a made-up word? Well, I mean, if we're going to get that meta, can't we say that, like, literally everything is a made-up word? Schmoobligong is a made-up word, just like the word Jew is a made-up word. They're all made-up words because we made them up. Language is a construction that we created. What do you mean Palestine is a made-up word? Interestingly enough, you know when the word Palestine was first used in history? About 300 BCE. Actually, you know what? Let me get the exact date on this because I looked it up recently. Okay, yeah, here it is. The term Palestine first appeared in the 5th century BCE when the ancient Greek historian Herodotus wrote of a district of Syria called Palestine between Phoenicia and Egypt in the Histories. The Histories of Herodotus is considered the founding work of history in Western literature. Anyway, so about the 5th century BCE is when it was first used for the very first time, and it was used to refer to the people in Philistia, or the Philistines. I'm sure you probably remember, if you grew up in Christianity, all the battles that King David and all, other Jews had with the Philistines, right? Let me just pull up a map real quick and show you what we're dealing with here for a little clarity. This is Israel. I'm trying to keep this as like middle of the road as humanly possible because I don't want anybody to suffer or die or get hurt. And there are good people in Israel. And there are good people in Palestine. If you disagree with me on that, then go f*** yourself. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, so Israel, this is the nation of Israel. So originally, the Philistines are believed to have come from over the sea. I think Philistine means sea people. And I believe the prevailing idea at this moment is that they came from Cyprus, most likely. Looks like most scholars agree that the Philistines were of Greek origin, and they came from Crete and the rest of the Aegean Islands, or more generally, from the area of modern-day Greece. So the Philistines settled right here in this Gaza Strip type of area here, and they came from Cyprus and from Greece, north of it. It's just this whole area right here, apparently, is the general consensus. They came over and landed in Israel and settled right where the Gaza Strip is today, right here on this map. But there were already people that were living in this area before the Philistines showed up. So where the Philistines lived was named Palestine. But the Philistines were eventually all wiped out, and the Arabs that lived in the area remained and identify as Palestinians today. So that should give you a little context for how Philistines are linked to Palestine. They're not the same group of people ethnically. Philistines and Palestine are different. They may just have like a similar root to their name, but they're not the same people.
Made-up word. There's no such person.
Every word is a made-up word, so I don't know what to tell them there.
A made-up word. There's no such person. All the land belongs to Israel, and the Bible declares that. Hand me that Bible right there for a minute. Somebody says, well, what's the land deed to the nation of Israel? Right here's the deed to their land, right here.
That's psychotic. So this guy believes that Israel owns the entire little strip of land in the Middle East there because the Bible says so, and they're allowed to do absolutely anything with it. They are allowed to do whatever it takes to take that area back, even if that means genocide, which appears to be the direction it's going at this immediate moment. I don't know. I guess we'll see. This should date exactly when this was filmed, this video that I'm giving you right now. You know why I say I believe they're about to commit a genocide? Let me tell you exactly and specifically why I believe that. In World War II, after Hitler had died in 1944, the United States was still battling with Japan. Japan was really imperialistic and absolutely nuts, and were doing everything they could to take over as much land as they could and fight and so on and so forth. But they're an island nation, which made it just an ugly thing to try to fight, to battle, to land on the shores and work your way inland. You lose a lot of people doing that kind of thing. So we had the Manhattan Project going in the U.S., our attempt to build an atomic bomb. And it was successful. After a number of tests, the bomb was built, and the United States gave the order to drop an atomic bomb on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. There's some in between. Like, they didn't know if they were going to be able to hit this city because it's too cloudy one day. But that was the eventual target. That's where the atomic bombs landed. A day or two before they dropped the atomic bombs on those two cities in Japan, the United States filled an airplane cargo hold full of sheets of paper that basically warned the citizenry, get out. Your government is leading you to destruction. Get out now. And then the bombs fell. Israel just dropped a bunch of leaflets on Gaza demanding 1.1 million people evacuate south immediately. That's an 8-hour commute by foot. You can't get there by car. Most people don't even have cars. You have to walk. And 1.1 million people, they dropped leaflets the same way that the United States did when they were about to drop the atomic bomb on Japan. Does it get more disturbing than that? I don't know what's going to happen next, but holy this is real. So I don't care what land deed Greg thinks he has or thinks that the Jews have or whatever. The Jews owned that little strip of land for all of like 20 minutes throughout their history, okay? Israel has a history of being destroyed and rebuilt, destroyed, rebuilt, renamed to Judea, and then destroyed, and then taken over by this empire, and then that empire, and then this empire. And then it was taken by caliphate after caliphate after caliphate from the Muslims. Jews have like owned the area for way less time than pretty much anybody else in the area. So if anybody really has a claim to it, it's Arabs, actually, really. I'm not saying I want like Israel to go away. I'm just saying this land deed thing doesn't hold any water at all. In an ideal world, this is something that's not going to happen. I just put my position on record real quick. This isn't going to happen, but if I could wish this into existence immediately, here's what I would do. I would make the entire area Israel, all of it, everything. And I would make Palestinians full and complete citizens that are 100% equal to Jews. No worry about, are they going to be allowed to vote? Can they be on the Supreme Court? It's an absolute 50-50 split between Palestinians and Jews. And even split in government and in everything. Racism is entirely too rampant right now for that to be realistic. So the Palestinians have to have a state, sadly. But in an ideal world, that's what I'd like to see. Anyway, keep listening here.
Every centimeter that the sole of their feet walked on, this is the title deed to their land.
Again, like Arabs owned it way, way longer than Israel.
It's the title deed to their land as the rightful heirs to Abraham.
Oh, so they own it not because they had it longer, but because Muslims are wrong, the rightful heirs to Abraham's land. Well, Muslims believe they're the rightful heirs to Abraham's land because they are an Abrahamic religion also. So this really boils down to a religious argument. I believe that I own the land or that I have a claim to it because my God said that I do. And the other side saying the same thing.
God keeps his covenant with his people. Listen, if God doesn't keep his covenant with the nation of Israel, which he has for all these centuries.
He has? He's kept his covenant with Israel? Israel didn't exist until 1948. What are you talking about? All these centuries? What?
And what makes you think that he's going to keep his covenant with us? If he breaks it with one, he'll break it with another. But I'm going to tell you, Titus 1:2 says God cannot lie.
Yeah, except God lied like all through the entire Bible. Like nonstop. You know who never told a lie in the Bible? Satan. Never told a single lie in there. Just pointing that out.
Any nation that turns against the Jewish people is in the sewer dump of history.
Well, I mean, the vast majority of nations are in the sewer dump of history, so... I mean, the Babylonian Empire, the Persian Empire, the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire, the Byzantines, the Ottomans, I mean, they're all just, like, in the sewer dump of history, if you will, because they rose and they fell. It doesn't mean anything, really. That's just what happens to empires.
Any individual that turns against the Israeli nation, any church, any community, any group, any sect, any denomination that has ever come out against the nation of Israel is in the sewer dump of the Encyclopedia Britannica. That's the facts.
No, it's not. I mean, there are a ton of countries out there right now that detest what's happening to, with Israel and Palestine at this moment and denounce Israel full-throatedly. And they have been for a while. This isn't new. So that's simply false. I think Israel is only accepted as a state by, what is it, like 136 out of 192 countries in the United Nations? Okay, 28 United Nations member states do not recognize Israel. 15 members of the Arab League, Algeria, Comoros, Djibouti, Iraq, Kuwait, Lebanon, Libya, I can't pronounce some of these, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Somalia. Only 15 members of the Arab League, 10 non-Arab members of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. That's Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Brunei, Indonesia, and Cuba, North Korea, and Venezuela. Those are the countries that reject its existence as a country. Also, Russia came out in favor of Hamas, last I heard, but, you can never... I don't know what Russia's up to right now. It's weird.
The reason God has blessed America so greatly is not because we're so wonderful and so righteous. Good grief, we're unrighteous right now. It's because we've been an ally and a friend to the nation of Israel. That is why God has blessed us. So I don't care where you stand politically.
Like, I don't understand. I thought he was a Christian. Why is he pumping up Jews so much as like God's chosen people? I thought that they forsook God or wait, what is it, forsook? I think it's forsook. I thought they forsook God, i.e. Jesus, when he came around and had him crucified. What's Greg talking about right now? This sermon that he gave got crazier and crazier the deeper we went into it. It's nuts. By the way, if you want to see my entire coverage of it, you can find it on my Telltale or my Owen Unfiltered YouTube channel. I changed the name recently. Owen Unfiltered. It released the entire thing. I covered it beginning to end, and it's nuts. But let's keep listening to a couple of the select nuttiest parts here. By the way, this dude right here, bottom right corner, I love his haircut. I love that to death. I should cut my hair like that, actually. Come to think of it, I really like that a lot. Yeah, this guy right here just had to blow up my mouth. Yeah, love that haircut to death, man. Fantastic. Dude knows what he's doing. Or his barber knows. Somebody does.
The Gaza Strip, which has now been cut off.
By the way, if you don't know the area, just show you a quick map of this so you have an idea. I don't think that this is like an accurate map up to this moment. It changes day to day sometimes, but you'll get an idea of what we're talking about here at the very least. So this part right here is Israel. If you're watching and not listening, it's kind of a light blue part. It's Israel. And then the Gaza Strip is on the left here. It's locked in because Egypt is on the left here. Israel is on the right. And then the sea is north of it here. So they can't get out. They can't go anywhere. They have nowhere to go, nothing to do. They can't escape if some happens, which it really seems like it's about to. And then on the right here, this is the West Bank. This is called the West Bank because it's west of the river here. What's this river? Is it? I don't want to make a fool of myself about Euphrates. Is it Euphrates? Which river is that? Somebody tell me in the comments, which river is that? It's called a skullet. Very metal. Right, a skullet. That's good. Like a mullet, except you can see his skull. That's funny. The Jordan River. Okay, I think it's the Jordan River. Thank you in the chat for telling me. So, yeah, it's west of the Jordan River. That's why they call it the West Bank. This white area, roughly, is kind of owned by Palestinians right now. And then up here on the north, this is the Golan Heights, contested, stolen from Syria. And it was a real battle. And people are very unhappy about the fact that Israel took it. So, should give you a little context for what we're talking about here. So Greg Locke is talking about the Gaza Strip here, this little bottom portion right here that's locked in. Can't get out through Egypt, can't get out through Israel, can't get out through the sea. It's an open-air prison, effectively. Okay, go on.
The Gaza Strip, which has now been cut off by Israel.
Been cut. Well, what he means when he says cut off is Israel cut power to the entire Gaza Strip. By the way, it's about the size of Manhattan, give or take, roughly. A little bit bigger. Has 2.2 million people. Manhattan has 1.6 million people. It's very densely populated. Very, very bad living conditions. I think it's 40 or 50% of the children in the Gaza Strip have PTSD because it's a war-torn area. Israel's been trying to get its hands on the Gaza Strip for, I don't know, like since the beginning, honestly. But they ended up with the power generation that goes into the Gaza Strip. Israel did. So Israel cut off their clean water and their power. That means hospitals that had babies on incubators, those babies just died because they cut the power off. I believe that's a war crime, by the way.
Cut off by Israel, and rightly so. They should have cut them off a long time ago.
Should have cut them off a long time ago. I guess the babies just don't matter in Greg's mind.
I don't care how insensitive you think I am to that. There's 6 doors in this church. You can leave anytime you want to.
No, I think it's psychotic. I think it's genocidal. You want to get people killed who are completely 100% innocent, didn't do shit to anybody.
They've cut them off, electricity. They've cut off their water. They should have. Now, listen, I'm not for hurting anyone.
Yes, he is.
That's innocent. But
well, what about the baby in the incubator? It's not innocent? It didn't do shit to anybody. Like I said, 2.2 million people. It's the size of Manhattan and more populated. How can you justify killing innocent people like this? Does it get more whacked out than this? Now, I'm not saying that there aren't some really bizarre and whacked out viewpoints on the Palestinian side. There definitely are, absolutely. And I will be getting to those. But we're talking about Greg Locke and his absolute psychosis, his religion-induced psychosis. Religion will make good people do bad things. In this case, it's making bad people do worse things, in Greg Locke's case specifically. Or at least making a bad person endorse an even worse thing.
One that's innocent. But anybody that supports terrorism is not innocent. You understand?
Oh, yeah, and that baby in the incubator supported terrorism, so life is forfeit for that one, little baby. 2 months old, maybe, or hell, a month old. Couldn't talk yet, but it supported terrorism, so got to put a stop to that. Nip it in the bud, if you will.
You understand that? Israel should make the Gaza Strip a parking lot by this time next week. Destroy.
That means kill every man, woman, and child in it. That's what Greg Locke is saying right now.
Destroy the whole thing. And anybody that's going to support this Hamas nonsense.
That is psychotic. There are, you know that 50% of the population is under 18. They're children. 50% of the population is children. Something to that effect. Hold on, let me find out. I want to get a good source on this. A real source, because here's the thing about this. There's a lot of propaganda floating around everywhere regarding this issue. Almost all of the propaganda that I see is from Israel, or pro-Israel propaganda. Now, that's not to say that Palestine doesn't have their own propaganda network. They absolutely do. Primarily run by Hamas, I think. But I think that it's mainly targeted toward the Muslim world rather than the Western world, which is who Israel is targeting with their propaganda. Hamas is trying to whip people into a blood frenzy and get them pissed off over what's happening. Israel is trying to whip the Western world into a blood frenzy over things. So almost all the propaganda that I see is from Israel. Almost all of it. I've seen very little pro-Palestinian propaganda, like actual real propaganda. Again, it's out there. It's just not really targeted toward the West. According to UNICEF, which is a pretty trustworthy source, 816,000 children in Gaza Strip were identified in need of mental health and psychosocial support, following 6 rounds of armed conflict since 2008 and daily protection issues. So 816,000 divided by 2.2 million. That's 37%. 37% of children in Gaza are in need of mental health support. It appears as though about 50% of people living in Gaza are children, as far as I can tell. Those are terrorists, Greg? What is wrong with this dude?
Listen, Joe Biden ought to be tried for treason.
What the hell does Joe Biden have to do with this?
You understand that? Now, I get it. Obama's the real president behind him anyhow, and so...
What does any of this have to do with anything? Oh, wait. Obama's Muslim, right? Is that what it is? Obama's Muslim, and that means he hates Israel. Am I in the ballpark? By the way, I think Obama supports Israel, like, a little too much. Not that it matters. Like, this is all a gigantic conspiracy created out of a fever dream that he's spouting off right now.
Real president behind him anyhow, and so he's the one that ought to be tried for treason.
You gonna tell us why?
I said, everybody all right, but I'm not really worried about it. I know who will be all right, Israel, because God said, no weapon formed against you is going to prosper.
But it did. It did prosper. What are you talking about? No weapon formed against you will prosper. Didn't Hitler kill like 6 million Jews? Seems like those weapons prospered. Let me tell you a little secret. God helps those who help themselves. You want to get out of a tough situation, you find your own way out. Because guess what? God's not answering the door. He didn't answer the door when children were killed in the Rwandan genocide. He didn't answer the door when they were killed in the Holocaust. He's not answering the door now either.
nation is going to be able to stop what God's doing in Israel. Not China, not North Korea, not Hamas, not Iran, not Iraq, none of them. Russia, not a one of them.
Wait, why did he throw China in there? What did that have to do with anything?
They're small potatoes in God's prophetic spectrum and timeline. So I hope Netanyahu's a leader and he just mows the whole thing down by this time next week.
He's talking about killing people right now. He wants Netanyahu to kill every man, woman, and child, all 2.2 million of them, in the Gaza Strip. That is psychotic. How did he get to this point? This is insane. Winston Sayer suggests that Greg read Night by Elie Wiesel. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic book. Oh, my God. I don't think Greg's read a book in his life. That's just speculation based off of one thing. My speculation that Greg has not read a book in his life is based off of this one singular clip, mid-September 2021.
I'm dumber than a box of rocks in a lot of areas. Facebook just makes people think I'm smart.
No, it doesn't.
I graduated from high school.
Anyway, that's Greg, dude. Oh, he's terrible.
Interesting. Did you know that Egypt closed their borders to anybody coming out of Gaza?
Yeah, because they are in an alliance with Israel. And Israel wants this to be an open-air prison. By the way, Egypt is largely controlled by Christians. I don't know if people realize that. Coptic Christians make up a lot of the wealth and power base in Egypt. They're very influential in Egypt. And as Christians, of course, they believe that, Israel is like this fundamental piece of the puzzle. They're this thing that must exist before Armageddon can come. So they're going to do whatever Israel says.
Egypt flooded their escape tunnels and barricaded their walls so that the Palestinians cannot even come into Egypt. You know why? Not even Egypt wants terrorists in their town.
Right, and literally every single Palestinian is a terrorist, right? Including the 5-year-old kids. The 5-year-old kids whose drinking water is no longer clean because Israel disabled their water cleaning facilities or their water processing facilities. That kid. Yeah, definitely. He's a terrorist. They're all terrorists. Absolutely.
You understand that? Seems like Egypt's got more sense than America does. If you think all this, I ain't starting to preach yet, but I'm about to talk for a minute, okay?
Please.
If you think all this open border stuff is not an opportunity for a bunch of Hamas sleeper cells to come into this nation right
Are you kidding me?
now and start killing innocent men, women, and children, you have lost your mind.
Oh my God, dude. Greg Locke believes that, first of all, that the U.S. has open borders. The U.S. does not have open borders. The borders are closed. They've been closed. They largely have not changed border policy since Donald Trump was in office. It's pretty much the same, by and large. And second, is there literally any evidence that Hamas has sleeper cells in the United States that they intend to blah, 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 whatever? Hamas, it doesn't have that much money. They don't have that many resources. They have almost nothing. Why would they go to the United States to do any of this stuff? It's like claiming that North Korea is building up like an army in the United States. Like, why would they do that? Their biggest adversary right now is South Korea. Hamas's biggest adversary right now is Israel. Yeah, the United States provides support to Israel, but I'm not sure like how they'd benefit from building up a humongous base of sleeper cells in the U.S. Like, I wouldn't put it past them to do some crazy shit, like some kind of terrorist action or something, some, martyrdom type of thing, like we saw on September 11th. But they're not building up an army in the U.S. by coming over open borders. You know how the 9/11 hijackers got into America? Do you think it was over open borders? No. They didn't want to raise suspicion of any sort in any way. So they came into the United States completely legally. They were 100% legit. And they were taking flight school here, and they had jobs, and they went to mosques, and they lived their lives. They didn't look suspicious at all. That is how you get terrorists into a country, because you don't want to raise suspicion. The idea that Hamas is coming over U.S. borders to build an army and then attack us is absurd on so many levels, I don't even know where to touch it.
I'm sick of all these Christians saying we ought to have peace with Islam. Islam is a satanic death cult, and they would cut your head off before I said amen in this sermon if they had a chance to.
Sure. Yes, I agree with you. Absolutely. There are some fundamentalist extremists out there that are Muslims. Do I need to point out the obvious that we're listening to a fundamentalist extremist Christian right now who's literally calling for the deaths of other people? Not for nothing. I just want peace. Okay, I just want everybody to get along and not hate each other and find a way to live in the same region at the same time. That's it. Greg Locke doesn't want peace. He just said it. He wants destruction because they're a satanic cult or something, and all satanic cults should be put to death or some other nonsense.
Stop all this nonsense. There's nothing peaceful about Islam.
Well, Islam as a religion, I think, is probably, like, they haven't had an enlightenment the same way that Christianity did. So there are some moderate sects, sects, of Islam, but I think that there are a lot of really extreme sects of Islam also. I think the majority of Christians in the world, like on a worldwide scale, are largely moderate, peaceful, and not violent or hateful or anything. But there are most definitely some very extreme Christian groups out there too. For what it's worth, what we're listening to here would be colloquially referred to as Islamophobia. Let me just put a little mention in here about Islamophobia. A lot of atheists in the atheist community don't like the term Islamophobia. They think it's a made-up term. It's ridiculous. Let me just try to frame it for you this way, okay? If you live in the United States, which if you're watching me, you probably do, you may not be aware of this, but in Europe, there is an influx of immigrants from war-torn areas, refugees from war-torn areas or from places that don't have as many economic opportunities. They try to come into Europe, various European countries to find those economic opportunities. Just like refugees from South and Central America come up into the United States to find economic opportunities and peace from a war-torn area. Just like people from Mexico and other Central American countries are coming into America to immigrate here because they think life will be better for them here. Now, in Europe, in Britain and other European countries, most of the people that are coming from war-torn areas or places with fewer economic opportunities are coming from Muslim-controlled areas. They're largely made up of Muslims. In the United States, we don't have that situation where Muslims are coming in. We have Hispanic people largely coming in to the United States. All that hate that you've heard Donald Trump spew about Mexicans being drug dealers and rapists and all that other stuff, that's how European governments talk about Muslims, because they believe they're trying to come in and change their culture and blah, 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 blah. All the same fear-mongering nonsense that we hear about Mexicans, people in Europe hear that about Muslims. There are plenty of reasonable, rational, normal Muslims out there that are not nutcases. Lots of them, as a matter of fact. And you know how you turn somebody reasonable, rational, and moderate? Turn them away from extremism? Drop them in an environment that's diverse, that has people of all different backgrounds and experiences and everything else. If you want to chill out a community of people and make them not complete nutcases, bring them into somewhere that's more diverse. That's the heart of Islamophobia. It's a problem in Europe. Islamophobia is hatred against Muslim people simply because they're Muslim. It's not really a problem in the United States. But it's still bigotry. That's what the word means, bigotry. Hatred of somebody because of the beliefs that they hold. It's still bigotry. Islam is destructive. I don't hate any Muslims. But Islam as a belief system is deeply destructive, in my opinion. Doesn't mean that the people in Palestine are worth any less than the people in Israel. They're not. They're worth just as much as human beings. And they have just as much of a right to live and be free as anybody else on this planet.
Now, I'm going to tell you what would fix it right now. By the way, it'd fix it, and it would help usher in what we're wanting so bad.
Now, this is the real point right here. This is what would fix it, and it would usher in what we want. Ready?
Huh? While they're mowing down the Gaza Strip
Psychotic.
and letting them terrorists know exactly what we do with terrorists, which is not compromise or negotiate.
Kill them, is what he's saying. We do that with terrorists, and terrorists are anybody I don't like. We kill them.
What they ought to do is evacuate up there on the hill and get a great big missile and blow that wicked dome of the rock plumb off of the spot where it's standing right now, so we can get that third temple rebuilt and usher in the coming of Jesus.
Oh, Jesus Christ, dude, this is insane. If you don't know the history of the temple and what he's referring to right now, back in, 1000 BCE, under King Solomon, the baby cutter, he had a temple built that was like a worship spot to Yahweh. And it stood there until 586 BCE, when Nebuchadnezzar of the Babylonian Empire came in and destroyed it and took a bunch of Jews as slaves and so on and so forth. Well, King Cyrus came in from Persia and takes over the entire Babylonian Empire and sends the Jews back to their homeland. Or at the very least, the Jews kind of trickled back to that area eventually. I don't think he ended slavery completely, Cyrus, but he, at the very least, destabilized the situation enough that a lot of them could escape. So anyway, they go back to their area. They rename Judea, which was, the new Israel. They renamed it to Yehud, which was Arabic for Jewish, basically. It was a province within the Persian Empire under King Cyrus. So that was in 586 when the temple was destroyed and they were taken. I think in the 530s BCE, they were coming back to Israel, or the Israel area, Yehud. And in 515 BCE, they started building a new temple after the first one had been destroyed. They finished that temple, and in the year 36 CE, after Jesus, King Herod refurbished it and renovated it and made it big and beautiful again. 70 CE, 30, 40 years after Herod did that, they destroyed the second temple. Around the year 630, 620, somewhere in there, Muhammad comes around and starts spreading Islam all through the area and creates a caliphate. A caliphate is basically like a kingdom that Muslims rule over. There were a number of caliphates, I think 4 of them throughout history. The final caliphate that controlled the area was the Ottoman Caliphate. Ottoman Empire is what it was called. Pretty much as soon as Muhammad died, there's no temple there. It was been 700 years since there was, roughly, or 600. The year 700 or so, somewhere in that vicinity, Muslims build the Al-Aqsa Mosque, one of the most holy sites in all of Islam. They built it there because, there's already a big pedestal there, and it's already set up and constructed and ready for some big building, right? Al-Aqsa Mosque has sat there since the year 700, give or take. That's what Greg Locke is talking about here. He wants to take a missile and destroy one of Islam's most holy sites, Al-Aqsa Mosque. I don't think it'd be as bad as destroying Mecca, but it's up there. It would absolutely pit the Muslim world against the Christian world for eternity. It would be ugly, very ugly, if this happened.
Rock plumb off of
The Dome of the Rock is the area where the temple was built.
And get a great big missile and blow that wicked dome of the rock plumb off of the spot where it's standing right now, so we can get that third temple rebuilt and usher in the coming of Jesus.
Yeah, some Christians, apocalypticists, think once the third temple is built, the Messiah will come back and blah, blah, blah. And it must be built before the Messiah comes again. The Jews believe the same thing. Before the Messiah can come, there must be a temple for him to come to. That's why extremist Jews and extremist Christians share the goal of getting the Al-Aqsa Mosque off of the Dome of the Rock area, or the pedestal, or I don't even know what you call it. The area where the temple sat. Psychotic. Absolutely psychotic. This is a war that primarily has religious motivations behind it, or is at least being motivated by religious reasoning.
Tear down that big demonic monstrosity that shouldn't even be there.
Big demonic monstrosity. When we start talking about Greg Locke's mom.
Blow the whole thing to kingdom come. Rebuild that third temple and we'll zip up out of here in the glory land. Amen.
Oh, I guess just the moment it's built, everybody gets raptured. When the final brick is put into place, slid into the wall, we're all raptured just like that. Totally. Anyway, psychotic. This is so outside the realm of reason and rationality. I don't even know what to do with it. This is so insane to me. Like I said, I want peace in the area. I want people to be treated like human beings, like the human beings they are. Hamas has the explicit stated goal of eradicating all Jews. That's horrific and wrong and disgusting. But Palestinians don't. The vast majority of Palestinians are just normal people trying to live their lives. I want Israel to be protected from extremists like Hamas and Hezbollah, and I want Palestinians to be protected from extremists like the leaders in government right now in Israel. I don't know that I'm going to live to see a day when Israel accepts a peace agreement. It's really them holding it up right now. I don't know if I'll live to see the day when they do that, but I guess we'll see. I would love to see them accept the Arab Peace Accords, I think is what it's called, offered in 2002, re-offered in 2007, and then again in 2017. Go back to the 1967 borders, which is super generous, and find a way to deal with refugees that's fair. I doubt Israel is ever going to take that deal, but who knows? Stranger things have happened. Well, let me know what you think about it in the comments. I think Greg Locke is unglued from reality at this point.